Welcome back to another episode of Chatroom with Shisa. Like always, I'm not going to tell you that this is an interesting episode, but I have to say I've been really waiting to do this one. So it's not like AI is like a far-fetched future reality that we're looking forward to. No, it's not. I mean, we're already in it. As a world, we're going through it together, the AI revolution. And Pakistan happens to be one of the countries with the youngest population. So while it is an opportunity to delve into the AI revolution and adapt onto it, it's also a challenge. The AI revolution I'm talking about, it has actually divided the world into two parts. One of the countries that are taking on the challenge and building the capacity and the technology, and the others who still haven't done anything. And Pakistan cannot afford to be in the second category, to be honest. So here we are discussing this. And to talk about it, I felt I need someone who happens to be at the center of the decision making table of all of this, especially for Pakistan. Luckily enough, I was able to get a hold of this person, a very, very busy schedule, the Federal Minister for Information Technology and Telecommunication, Ms. Shaza Fatma Khwaja, is with us here in the chat room with Shaza. Welcome, Minister. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. All well, alhamdulillah. Thank you.
So good to have you here finally.
Thank you so much for having me. I know we've been able to finally conduct this after quite a few reschedulings.
And it's a pleasure. I have a lot to talk about today, but first things first. This is like a testament of how absolutely important it is to include women in decision making, especially for countries like Pakistan, where youth is an opportunity and a challenge. Thank you for being a part of that. It's a movement that you are leading, and we're going to delve into it one by one. Congratulations. Just a few days ago, the Prime Minister himself, congratulated your efforts. I mean, the latest stats I have is of $3.5 billion in IT exports. Wow, that's amazing for a country.
Thank you. 3.8.
3.8 billion. Thank you so much for correcting me. And your coffee is here as well. So, Ms. Shaza, I want to talk about, like I said, so many things. But how is your experience as minister, federal minister, going so far? Let's take it light.
Thank you so much. So, good question.
Yeah.
So, I would say it's pretty intense. It's challenging. But I think there are very few things that are more impactful and purposeful than getting to represent people and to be in a position where you can actually solve problems for them. And especially in a portfolio like IT and telecom in this day and age, I think where everything's going digital, there's a whole paradigm shift towards digital, whether it's your everyday life, your social development, your economy, even your national security. I think it's very, very purposeful to be in a position right now in this portfolio. But like I said, it's quite intense, it's challenging, but it's equally exciting.
I'm so happy to hear that it's exciting for you. But do you agree with me or any part of it when I say that the youth of Pakistan, more than 60%, is a challenge and an opportunity? And do you think that Pakistan hopped onto it at the right time, including technology and AI into our daily lives and also then policies?
I think you're absolutely right. So while we say that about almost 68% of our population is what we consider to be youth. So we have young boys and girls, quite a lot of them, and that we believe, and we actually have faith in the fact that they are our biggest potential and our biggest asset, the human resource that we have. However, if we fail to, God forbid, channelize their energies in a more productive and positive manner, that's when it may become, and hopefully not and never, may become a challenge, especially a resource challenge. Mm-hmm. So population itself is a conversation that we need to have, but for a separate day. Mm-hmm. But I think that the fact that we have so many young people, it also gives us so much opportunity. So, for example, we run training programs for hundreds and thousands of young people. And the fact that we're able to train them has actually put us in such a good position that we were just talking about the exports. So, for instance, Pakistan right now is the fourth largest freelancing economy of the world. And these are young people sitting in their homes, co-working places, universities, not even graduated yet, who are making this kind of impact. We saw a 91% growth in freelancer exports in the last fiscal year.
Oh, wow.
So this human resource is definitely the biggest asset that we have, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to channel their energies. We're trying to train them. We're trying to make them into productive citizens who will eventually end up contributing massively to the national economy.
Really looking forward to that, fingers crossed. But Minister, can I tell you something, like from the perspective of a layperson, someone who's not a part of the government? I have been a part of discussions in groups where they're scared of adapting AI. And I've also been a part of, groups who know that there's absolutely no world without adapting it. So for someone like me to see that there's now a national AI policy, honestly, it's amazing. Can I get to know more about it?
Sure. So last year, first in January, we were able to pass a legislation, which is the Digital Nation Pakistan Act. And Honorable Prime Minister Mohammad Shehbaz Sharif, he, I'll tell you a very small but interesting story. So we just took oath in, this is March 2024, and when the presidency taking oath for the cabinet, and all our families are there, and, that ceremony was happening. And even before we could finish our tea, we got a call that there's a meeting in the Prime Minister's office and please get there. So we rushed there. And the first conversation that happened right after taking government was that this is our best possible shot to take IT to the next level. And there has to be a complete roadmap for digital transformation of the country. Mm-hmm. And the exports targets quite stretched, quite challenging, but we're set to $15 billion plus $10 billion of digital transformation impact. Mm-hmm. So this is the first conversation that happened when we took office. Mm-hmm. And thereon, we started working on the roadmap as per Prime Minister's Digital Nation Pakistan vision. And we ended up passing the Digital Nation Pakistan Act. Today, we have the National Digital Commission that the Honorable Prime Minister chairs. All chief ministers are a part of it. Federal cabinet, the regulators, they're all a part of it, because we believe that digital transformation is a horizontal and a vertical process, and everybody needs to work together towards it. And then we have the Pakistan Digital Authority that's working on the National Digital Transformation Master Plan, sectoral master plans to create the Pakistan stack. But as we moved on, I think even though the AI conversation is not new, it's quite old. But we have to agree that over the last 2 years, the kind of escalation that we've seen in terms of the evolution of technology, emerging technologies, the way they're changing, I think now it's a matter of hours that new technology comes up. Yeah. Earlier, it was still a little slow. And what we felt was that our baseline policy document on AI was missing. So we began to work on that, did extensive stakeholder consultations, and ended up with the National AI Policy with under the leadership, the cabinet passed. And now we have Pakistan's first AI policy. It's based on multiple things, but for instance, some of our pillars are that AI has to be secure. So we talk about ethical and secure deployment of AI. We talk about the infrastructure that's required behind artificial intelligence, the compute power, the data centers, the cloud, the GPUs that are required, and what would Pakistan's roadmap be to enable our, the whole AI ecosystem. Then we talk about innovation. How do we encourage young people? How do we fund R&D so that more innovation and entrepreneurship can build within the AI, domain. Then we spoke about the policy talks about international collaboration. How do we, because today technology cannot happen in silos. There are countries that are already ahead of us. There are technologies that are out there. So international collaboration with development partners, with private sector companies, with governments is all a part of it. So, this is a conversation that we're trying to have within AI. And then a very important component is human resource. So it targets 1 million young people to be trained in the next few years. Wow. So, these are some of the, just a high level brief of what AI policy talks about. But the important part is that it does not remain a piece of paper, and it gets into execution. And that's what we're specifically working on. That's what the Honorable Prime Minister is focused on, that execution is the real part. Documents, policies, legislations, we have quite a few of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Very brilliantly explained. Like you said, execution may be a problem. And I think, of course, like being citizens of Pakistan, that is something we really hope for it to be fixed also, you know. When you talk about IT resources, yes, you said we have a lot of it, like in Pakistan, in terms of freelancers and people in the industry. But do you think that the infrastructure may be lacking?
Yeah, so that's true. I would say that right now, because AI infrastructure is quite capital intensive. Pakistan as a country is doing very well now. Alhamdulillah, we've been able to stabilize the economy. We're on a growth trajectory, but still, the kind of resources, capital, investment that's required, that's quite massive as compared to what we have right now. But still, the kind of commitment that the leadership and the cabinet has, we've been able to get the budgets, and we will be creating shared baseline infrastructure for our industry, for our government. But also, I think that given the stabilization, given the right kind of policies that are there, the AI policy, the Digital Nation Pakistan Act, good financial policies, I think the private sector has started stepping up. So now what I can safely say is that when we talk about AI infrastructure, infra as a service is not something which I would say is a big problem.
Okay.
But what we need to focus on is upgrading it and its quality. So platform as a service on cloud, software as a service available on cloud, the kind of services that AI-enabled clouds should be giving to entrepreneurs and innovators, that is something that we're beefing up now. So some good announcements Prime Minister will make, inshallah, next week as well.
Okay.
But overall, I think that we're doing considerable work on sovereign AI, on making sure that at least for our entrepreneurs, for our companies, and for the government, the AI infra should not be a problem within the next few months. Already there's a lot of work that's done. A lot of private sector companies, telcos, do have cloud available. Plus, we have the cloud first policy.
Okay.
That's also created a lot of opportunity and business case for private sector to invest in cloud in Pakistan. So that has also helped. We're right now in the process of shifting the government departments onto cloud, and also we're on we're already rolling out the cloud adoption, which essentially means that we're informing as ministry. We're supporting companies to learn about what the policy is, how can we assist them in migrating to cloud. So that's another function that we're trying to do through the
Right.
ministry.
Again, exciting. So when we talk about the Prime Minister's vision for a digital economy, also export-based economy, you come into both of these. Is it stressful being you?
I would, it is.
I can
It's-
imagine.
Again, I would say it's stressful. It's long working hours. It's on average 14 or to 16-hour day. This Saturday, our last meeting ended at around 2 a.m.
Wow.
So there are hardly any weekends. There are no holidays. But again, I would say that very grateful to be in the position where I am. First, of course, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who's given me this opportunity, but then to my leadership, who's put that trust in me for this almost seventh largest country in the world to lead its IT and telecom. I think that's the kind of privilege that I'm very grateful for. But having said that, it obviously has a lot of responsibility that comes with it.
Of course.
And with that responsibility comes a lot of stress, a lot of work, a lot of burning of midnight oil, a lot of personal cost that one has to pay, to fulfill the responsibilities and duties that are there.
And it's
But-
almost noble, I have to mention over here, because like you mentioned, like insane working hours, to be honest. But then the consequences of the fruit of it, the nation is going to bear. And I
Inshallah.
think that is where you also find your pride in it, right? Like it's not selfish. Not like
No,
the
no,
kind of
absolutely
job
not.
that you do, which is amazing. And speaking of how busy you've been, I know that you've been busy in something that is coming up in a few days, the Indus AI Week. I want to delve into it. I have a lot of questions, honestly. On behalf of all of you, also, I'm going to get all the answers. But why the name Indus?
So Indus is the lifeline of our country, and it actually literally gives life to everything that there is. We're one of the largest agrarian economies, and Indus really powers Pakistan as it is. But if we go back in history, thousands of years ago, Indus civilization was one of the most intelligent civilizations, probably the first intelligent civilization that the world saw.
Okay.
And we want to build into the roots and build onto it, and we want everybody, especially our younger generation, to be rooted in a very, very strong history that this part of the world holds. And we are descendants of a civilization that built the first cities,
Right.
that built the first modern irrigation systems. So these we want everybody, especially our young children, to be proud of our history, to be proud of our heritage that we carry because of the Indus civilization. So really connecting back to the roots, and also now today as we stand, to reclaim our position as that intelligent civilization in today's world of artificial intelligence. And our avatar is also Indus Dolphin.
Oh, nice. I like that.
So that will also be revealed. So Indus Dolphin is our avatar. Indus is our, that's the benchmarking that we're doing, and really reclaiming our position in the world as, once again, leading the intelligent era.
I like that and really looking forward to it. But what does the Indus AI Week look like?
So the AI Week on the 9th of February, inshallah, there are three parts to the Indus AI Week. The first part is the Leadership Summit, and it's happening here in Islamabad, in Jinnah Convention Center. Honorable Prime Minister will be opening the AI Week at the summit. We have keynotes from Field Marshal General Asim Munir. We have some leading AI technologists, industry leaders from all over the world coming to Pakistan. And the Leadership Summit will have a closed-door discussion. We will come up with Islamabad Declaration. And it's essentially a policy dialogue with the top-level people to get their feedback, to have a sounding board on our AI roadmap, and then come up with a clear policy and also a clear execution roadmap for the next few years. It is on the AI Summit, we will have panel discussions. All these people who are coming from abroad, they'll be talking about different subjects, sovereign AI, and industry meetup, industry collaboration as well from Pakistan, and also academia. The second part of it is that on the 9th and 10th, we're having you can say that we're celebrating AI in Pakistan and innovation in Pakistan. So in the sports complex, we have a multi-layered event. So there is, for example, there's going to be something for everybody. So if you are playing, if you're into esports, we're having esports competition on 4 games. There's prize money involved. There's going to be a lot of excitement around it. Young people, schools, universities, youth coming in. Then we have something for all our women. So gender is something which is obviously very close to my heart. AI for Her is a pavilion that we have. We're going to have panel discussions, women-led businesses on AI. They will be displayed, and we're going to have multiple activities, trainings, conversations, networking, and exposure to our young women of the capabilities that they have, and also exposure to them of what all otherwise is there.
Right.
Then we have the Industry Expo. Where our private sector is displaying their cutting edge technologies, their products. Government is we are displaying our GovTech products, as well as the provincial governments. The Defense Tech is going to have its own display.
Okay.
So the idea here is that in addition to the tech industry, how do we open up to the non-tech industry? Today, if you're a farmer, you're an agriculturalist, you need AI. You need AI solutions. You need digital solutions. If you're a banker, you need fintech solutions. If you're a health professional, you need health tech solutions. You're a lawyer, you need legal tech. So everybody, our manufacturing, our agriculture, everyone needs AI. So there's something for everybody in there. Another thing very close to my heart that's happening there is AI for differently abled.
Okay,
Yes,
interesting.
absolutely. So we really wanted to make it inclusive. We're going to have a pavilion where some of our tech startups who are working on AI for differently abled people, that they'll be showcased, and when this is an invitation to everyone to register on our website, but also be there. There's going to be something for everyone, like I said. So these are a few things that are happening there. There's also training happening, AI based, some hands-on training, some more around privacy, ethical AI, just fundamentals of artificial intelligence, just to give exposure and awareness to everybody. So that's what we're trying to do.
Okay.
Yeah, but the third part is the nationwide celebrations. So we have right now 52 confirmations from over 35 cities across Pakistan. So, like I said, everybody, this is actually celebrating innovation across Pakistan. So, we're taking everyone along, universities, chambers of commerce, industry associations, the tech industry itself. So, the governments. So, we're really rallying the whole nation behind this artificial intelligence conversation.
Right. So much to uncover over here, honestly.
Sorry, that was a long
no,
answer.
No, not at all. I'm really excited to learn all of this, to be honest. Let's take on this one by one, of course. I have to tell you, Minister, your role in bringing maximum or like more than imagined amount of women to IT&T, it's honestly commendable. People have been waiting for this kind of revolution. You are here with it. Amazing. You spoke about AI for her. Can we talk about that a little bit more? What does that entail? How are we making sure that there's at least some kind of equality in terms of representation? And then, of course, like business owners, women entrepreneurs are also going to be there. Can I have some details on AI for her?
Sure. So when I talk about AI for her, first of all, I'll just again tell you a small story.
Please, I'd love to hear.
So last year, we were, deciding, the Honorable Prime Minister was deciding how to give out the Ramzan package, like the government does every year. So usually it would be a subsidy to utility stores where people, women registered with BISP, would come and could really get access to that subsidized grocery at your utility stores. Unfortunately, every year they would have to stand in long queues. Sometimes things would run out. There'd be a lot of challenges. So this year, Prime Minister said that we have to come up with a solution, which is targeted subsidy, which maintains the dignity of the recipient. We don't want long queues in Ramzan especially. And we want to make sure that there's absolute transparency. So he gave us the task. And the first thing that came to my mind was digital payments. And I said that that's the only way out. And we have great record of the BISP women, and let's do this. The first pushback was women won't be able to access technology. They will not have mobile phones. They cannot make digital wallets. They don't know how to read and write.
Right.
How are we going to make it possible? To cut the long story short, with the help of Ministry of Poverty Alleviation, the BISP, the Finance Ministry, Pakistan Telecom Authority, the PM House, Banking Association, the Telecom Association, everybody came together. But in 1 week, we broke all myths, and more than 800,000 women, that's almost 1 million women, making their digital wallets, activating them, and coming into financial inclusion. So that's the kind of impact, that's the kind of uptake, that's
It's
the kind
a
of
grassroots level change.
Absolutely. That's the kind of change that's coming up. And in last year's GSMA report on gender digital divide, Pakistan was able to bridge the mobile internet gap from 38% to 25%.
Okay.
That was the largest closure of gender gap anywhere across the world. And so that's the kind of potential that I feel our women have. You just give them a small opportunity and they make so much out of it.
Right.
And all of this conversation around that they won't be able to do it, that's something that I don't believe in at all.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is, you just saying that you don't believe in it because you just have to provide them with the facilities or the equipment, and then they will be there at par with the men.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just so good to hear. Because look, when you suggested, or like when someone comes up with an idea of It's Ramadan. There's also a level of empathy over here, which we really have to realize. It's Ramadan. People must be fasting, especially women.
Yes.
We live in a society and culture where
Yes.
women are mostly homemakers.
Absolutely.
So during fasting, of course, they're still really responsible for whatever goes at home. They cannot stand in long queues.
agree.
But imagine the issue here is, access to smartphone or access to internet. That the gap bridging is absolutely insane and absolutely love it. And I think, Minister, I have to take a promise from you over here. By the time your, term ends, I want you back here again and we want to talk
Inshallah.
about especially women.
Inshallah.
But yes, coming back to Indus AI Week.
Yeah.
You spoke about inclusion. There's a lot of activities you said, but also like projects related to persons who are differently abled. Can I get a bit more information on that?
Yeah, so we have a lot of technology solutions. We feel and we believe that technology is a means to an end. Technology is there to help citizens. We want to use technology to help citizens live a better life, and it could be anyone. It could be a child. It could be a differently abled person. It could be a woman, entrepreneur. Like I said, any professional. When it comes to differently abled people, I think technology is one of the largest equalizers that we have. And for example, we have some startups that are working on these gamification in terms of they've prepared some games to really help differently abled people when it comes to, for example, children who are on spectrum, who may be autistic, to build their hand-eye coordination. That's just one example, right? So games that support building hand-eye coordination, that improve those skills. Then we have a very vibrant community of young girls and boys whose parents are both deaf and dumb.
Okay.
Right. So they have, from their experiences, built some great technology solutions to support. And, these are things that you and I probably take so much for granted.
Of course.
If, God forbid, somebody cannot speak and hear and they have to go to a police station, there's no way they can communicate what the issue is. They cannot call home, tell they're in trouble. That's just one example, right? So they've come up with solutions for these people. Then I came across, again, a very entrepreneurial person who's built a smart stick for people who have challenges in seeing. So, that's another kind of
It's a huge
technological
innovation,
solution.
yeah.
Absolutely. So a stick based on AI that can sense, that can talk, that can literally talk to you is something that is a solution, right? So prosthetics for people who would, require amputation or other come across other accidents. So that's the kind of solution. So obviously we can't do everything in one day, but that's something that we will dedicate our energies on once the week is over as well. But right now we'll have a small pavilion, but because we want parents and families and young children who are differently abled, parents of such children also, to feel included, to not feel that they cannot be a part of it, because I think already the world holds enough challenges for them. They're already unable to become a part of a lot of things, like I said, that we take for granted.
Right.
So we really want to create that safe space where they can come and also be a part of this larger movement.
So nice to listen to it, of course. But Minister, can we have a realistic answer in terms of this? We spoke about so many sectors that we are aiming to include in the AI technological race, of course. Realistically speaking, I'm pretty sure there must be a hierarchy of prioritization, of course. What do you think personally, which are some of the sectors which might actually be first in terms of, adapting AI in Pakistan completely?
If I talk about, so there's, I think there's no one single answer to that. But
Okay.
there are certain things that we are prioritizing as a government, which is, for example, the government itself. We've right now digitized the whole federal government. All of us, we use e-office, which means that we don't really sign any documents. It creates transparency, it creates efficiency, it gives real-time dashboards, analytics to the Honorable Prime Minister to have better governance, to make informed decisions. Now we're, upgrading it So that's one area where we think that immediately we need to digitally transform the government of Pakistan so that everything else starts to fall in place. Another priority that we have is agriculture. So we're already working on an agri stack, and that's quite far ahead in its progress. That's being done with the Green Initiative of the SIFC, and that's something that we feel that once we have the agri stack, deploying analytics on it, deploying farmer identities on it, will really unlock the value and potential that agriculture has for Pakistan. The third so one was governance. The other one we strongly believe will unlock the potential, the economic potential in the when we talk about agriculture. But when I talk about social sector, health would be I would say one of the first for the government. It's our priority to make it one of the first adapters of technology and AI. So health stack is the third stack that we're working on, and we're very hopeful that that's something that we'll launch very soon. So whether it's UMR, whether it's one patient, one ID, or the stack itself in terms of data analytics, that's something that requires immediate adoption. Last but not the least is obviously the economic side of government. So the Honorable Prime Minister weekly personally takes digitization meetings for FBR, customs, revenue generation. So, there are different sides to it, but these are the government's priorities. We'd like to do everything together.
Right.
That's obviously not possible. But if there's one thing, if you ask me where will it bring the biggest disruption, that might actually be education.
Okay.
Because initially when we were going to school, our source of knowledge was a teacher or a parent.
Yeah.
Right.
Library.
So, absolutely. Library, books. Those books were also very strategically curated.
Of course.
In the library, what books would be there, what would not be there. Today, those barriers are not there for young people. Their source of knowledge could literally be anything. It could be a large language model, the DeepSeeks and the Chat GPTs and Geminis and Llamas of the world, or it could be when they go to school. That's obviously one. It could be the social media itself. It could be these edtech solutions that we're looking at. But most of these things, especially when we talk about AI and technology, they're not age gated.
Okay.
They don't have, right now as we speak, they don't have enough guardrails. But the disruption is right there. And that kind of creates a lot of anxiety, not only in terms of governance of the country, because that's your younger generation growing up with certain perspectives and ideologies, but also as parents. So, we genuinely see that there is a lot of anxiety amongst parents, also amongst children. What will their education mean 2 years down the lane?
Right.
Will these degrees matter? Will what they're working towards, these grades and everything, will that be relevant anymore? Will the universities look like what they look like right now?
Right.
Will the professions be what professions they're aiming for right now? Today, if you become a doctor, you become a doctor through a legacy method that you become a doctor. But tomorrow when robots take over surgeries, are we really equipped to do that? So, that's the kind of disruption that's coming in that we're foreseeing. And that's understandably causing a lot of anxiety amongst every strata of the society.
Absolutely. And I think I will have to confess over here, there are times when even I'm confused about how fast the world is moving in terms
Absolutely.
of technological advancements. So yes, the parents and also the children, I think both the generations and in between, I think everyone is confused about how it's going to look like, but we are on the right path. Let's see
Inshallah.
where this goes.
Inshallah.
I need your expert opinion on something. Do you think it's the right time for Pakistan to invest so heavily in AI?
I think the time was never better.
Okay.
Just 4 years ago, the conversation was, unfortunately, will Pakistan default? Or if Pakistan would default, when would it default? We were looking at countries that were defaulting, that were seeing national uprisings. And unfortunately, that's a conversation that the country was engulfed in. I'm very proud to say that within 2 years, we had stabilized. Now, 4 years almost down the lane, we're on a growth trajectory. We're looking now as to how can we make this growth more sustainable and get out of the boom and bust cycles. And the reason why we get actually able to have this conversation about investment in AI, about AI policy, about building infra, about training young people, all of this requires a lot of resources, right? So the fact that we're able to have this discussion and we've moved on from that really tip where there was a fear that we might fall off. I think we've come a long way in these 3 to 4 years. And kudos to the Honorable Prime Minister, his unwavered support, his dedication, the kind of hours that he puts in, the kind of details that he goes into. I think that has single-handedly really brought us where we are today. And then his whole of government approach, his creating of SIFC, which created an apex body, which is led by the Honorable Prime Minister, supported by the Field Marshal, but also attended by not just the federal cabinet, but the provincial chief ministers, the regulatory heads, really put everybody on the same table to work towards a single goal of economic recovery.
Right.
So now that we're here, I think this is the time now to invest in emerging technologies, in growth. And I have to say that I don't think that's an option anymore.
Okay.
This is an existential situation right now. We have to invest. AI is taking up everything by a storm. You talk about your, like we've spoken about multiple subjects now.
Right.
But your conventional idea of economic growth that usually comes through manufacturing or agriculture and exports, that's completely being teared down by AI. The manufacturing industry at large is coming up with automation where your per capita productivity is getting 100x if you know AI, and you're minus 100x if you don't know AI. Right? So as a country, we have to, in every single sector, adapt with these technologies. I don't think there's any other option that we have. The education, the curriculum, everything needs to be invested in to make sure that our students, our young people are up to pace with the new technologies because they're growing up in the digital first world. We were not that generation, but the generation now is actually being born and growing up in a digital first world. And that's something that we need to really enable them with. So I think there has been no better time than now to make massive investments when it comes to AI. And that's something that we're collectively agreed on and something that we'll be taking up, inshallah.
But I have to ask over here that, yes, you mentioned there's no choice at this point, to be honest. Like, you really have to go with the wave. And like I said before, also, we're doing great, to be honest, with the pace. But are there any risks in consideration here?
Yes, of course. So anything new, not just technology, always the good stuff that it brings, it also brings its own set of challenges with it. So when we talk about AI, for example, if we just look at these LLMs or the social media that you use, the kind of information available right now, the machine learning, the data on which the machine learning has happened, has obviously ingrained biases. It's not indigenous. Most of it is not indigenous to Pakistan. Our cultural identity, our religious identities, our national identities, they could potentially be at stake if we don't really pull our act together. We work together. We make sure that we invest in these technologies. We build our own LLMs. We work on inputting the right kind of data that we want our young children to learn. So that's just one example. It also comes with a lot of cybersecurity situations.
Okay.
So digital frauds,
Right.
Cybersecurity from a very basic hacking of your website, of your podcast today, to all the way to national security. God forbid. To all the way to national security, right? So last year, the war that we won, alhamdulillah, the Markai Haq that happened, while most of it was actually on ground with our jets and our, conventional armed forces conflict that happens, but a lot of it happened on the cyber front. Alhamdulillah, the cyber capabilities of the government of Pakistan, of our forces, they were enough that we did not see any massive cyber attack. We did not see any attacks on our communication systems. We were all safe throughout. But that required a lot of defense capability.
I'm sure.
Cyber defense capability. But we were also great with what we did in that cyber warfare. And I think it was a core component of winning the war as well. So, all the way up to national security, cyber space is something that we need to secure right now. Then comes the issue of misinformation, disinformation. I think over the last year, the visual AI has developed so much that while you could very easily tell a year ago when the video was edited with AI, today with video cloning, with voice cloning, there is no way you can tell with naked eye. An average person can tell whether this is a real or an AI generated image or video.
Right.
And that obviously, while it has a lot of great use cases,
It's also scary to be honest.
it's also scary. It's also challenging. It has a
Right.
lot of regulatory challenges. It has it comes with its own complete set. I mean, if tomorrow somebody makes a video of me making a speech that I've not made, or any controversial opinion, on a video seeming like I'm saying that, because
Right.
now there's also perfect voice cloning happening.
And
I
lip
mean,
sync is amazing.
Lip sync
Oh
is
my God.
amazing. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even the actions, they've become so normalized. So it does come with a lot of challenges, something that we have to tackle with. But that's not something that should hold us back.
Of course.
That's not something that should, push us to make regulations or stuff that kind of throttles innovation. We live in an open space. That's something that we'd like to continue with. But obviously, we will have to put the right kind of guardrails around it, the right kind of regulations to make everybody secure, especially children, women, the vulnerable parts of our community, segments of our society. So that's something that we're careful for and mindful of.
Right.
And that's a very core pillar of our AI policy as well.
Of course, and I think there's a lot of education that needs to be done over here.
Absolutely.
In terms of reaching the masses. A few days ago, I was in conversation with someone who happens to be one of the pioneers of the Web 3.0, someone who works in Silicon Valley. And the person said, he also contributed a lot to OpenAI.
Right.
And the person said that at this point, now imagine this person being the creator. And he says that he's so scared of how fast the advancement is moving that earlier you would have to wait months for a new development. Now it's every 30 minutes or 35 minutes and you have to keep up. So
Absolutely.
laypersons like us, it's absolutely scary. But Minister, I have to take you back to where you said you're bringing everyone to the table in this AI week. I also read somewhere you were bringing a lot of tech-based startups. What is that about? How are you facilitating them in moving forward, or are they helping you out in something?
So I think, first of all, thanks to the planning minister, Professor Ehsan Iqbal, they run at Udan Pakistan Techathon, and that's what we're doing at the AI Week in the sports complex as well. We're also doing with Ignite an AI rapper competition. We are displaying some startups that have these cutting edge technologies. So that's something that's happening at the AI Week. So there's going to be a whole area where startup ecosystem is going to be, all visible to everybody who comes. We also have 5 large venture capitalists coming from the US and different countries to Pakistan for the AI Week. So they'll get to have exposure with them. There's going to be mentorship opportunities. There's going to be a main stage for talks.
Right.
So, that's something that's there. But overall, I think we're doing quite a bit when it comes to startup ecosystem. We're launching the Pakistan Startup Fund, something that I've been working on since 2022.
Okay.
When I was the SAPM on youth affairs. We've also launched the cloud credit program for startup, because hosting on cloud is one of the major costs that startups incur. So now we've opened our applications. We'll be reimbursing some of the cloud costs. We're also starting Pakistan Startup Fund 2.0, which is essentially creating fund of funds getting development partners on board, getting the right kind of international fund managers on board. We genuinely feel that the government should not be managing funds.
Okay.
So we're getting the best expertise that is out there to do that for us. But that's something that we're working on. We run innovation competitions quite regularly. We incubate startups in 8 different incubation centers that we run across the country. We're right now supporting 13 startups that are into acceleration programs across the world, some top-notch accelerators like the Garage in Saudi, Plug and Play in US, Hassan VC, all these accelerators. We have 24 more in the pipeline that we're going to support. We genuinely feel that just because our startups cannot afford, that should not be
Any
a
limitation,
barrier,
yeah.
absolutely, for them to get that kind of international exposure, especially in these world-class accelerators. So that's another thing that we do to try to support them. And that's something that our mandate is. Now we've gotten some more approvals for injecting more into R&D, especially when it comes to AI. So these are some of the things that we're doing to support startups and the
Right.
ecosystem.
So right before you were coming, I was in my newsroom with my colleagues, and they asked me who is going to be on the podcast, and I mentioned, and we were talking about the Indus AI Week. A lot of them were so excited about the esports arena.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us more about it.
So esports arena is, we know that gaming is a major economic sector in the world. It contributes to economies. Sometimes they've really transformed economies, especially when smaller countries. There's something that, again, is something I'm very passionate about, is Center of Excellence for Gaming and Animation, 2 of which we've launched, one in Karachi, one in Lahore. They are mentoring, they are training, they are hosting and incubating game developers.
Right.
But that's just one part that we're doing. At the Indus AI Week, we are encouraging young gamers, people, everybody. Our rough estimate is that anywhere between 4 to 5 million young people play online games in Pakistan. So they're part of the online gaming community that we have. Big community worldwide, something that we want to encourage our young people to be a part of. So that's something that's happening. So there's a gaming competition. We've shortlisted 4 games. There's Rocket League, there's Tekken, there's 2 more. We are having, right now as we speak, regional competitions are ongoing, qualifiers are ongoing. We will have the finals on the 9th and 10th of February here. We're building a world-class gaming arena. There's going to be full stations. But in addition to the young people who are participating in the competition, we also have an experience area for young gamers. So anyone who's there can come and visit the experience area, play some esports for a while, and again, experience and be a part of it. A big part of what we're doing is to give this exposure and experience to young people, a lot of whom would otherwise probably not have it. Having a console at home is not a luxury that everybody affords.
Right.
But that's something that we just want everybody to experience, and we'll see what the outcome is, how everybody reacts to it. If it's great, we might make it a regular event.
Right. I know you're really short on time, so I'm quickly going to wrap it up. But my last question is something that I need an honest answer to. I know you've been honest, but a little more honest over here. A few years from now, fast forward to, let's say, 2030, what is Pakistan's AI journey looking like? Is it a success?
Inshallah. We are working very aggressively on quite a few things. First, covering our bases with connectivity. Next month, spectrum auction, aggressive fiberization. 5 years on, we should be, in the top tier countries when it comes to access to internet and also stable, high-speed, reliant internet. The second is working on digital transformation, creating digital identities of our citizens, their personal personas as well as their professional personas. So you as an individual should have a digital identity, but you as a media person would have a digital persona identity as well. What does that mean? That means,
I was going to ask.
Yeah. What that means is that, there's already an app called Pak ID that Nadra runs. That's your digital identity. cradle to grave, all your documentation related to you as a citizen should be available to you, certified, credible, authenticated documentation digitized in your digital vaults. So your ID card, your license, your birth certificate, moving on, your education documents, your land records, everything comes consolidated in your digital vault, which essentially carries all your digital documentation. The other part is that what do you do with these documents? You want to open a company, that should all be digitally done. So a virtual, again, a super app that allows you that when you say you want to build a company, you go there, you register a company, but you don't really have to go to the SECP, you don't have to go to the State Bank, FBR, and do all that documentation. You click on the fact that you want to make a company, all your relevant documents from your digital vault automatically access to the relevant departments, and you open a company in 5 minutes. That's what happens in developed worlds today. That's not a reality far off. That's something that's already happening, but that's something that want our people to have access to.
Right.
And same goes for anything else. Land transfer, anything that you want to do, you should be able to do it on a click of a button. That's the kind of digital transformation that we're foreseeing. We want to make Pakistan a cashless economy. We want to make it a contactless society where anything that you want to do, you shouldn't have to come to offices, to government offices. And we want to make Pakistan into a completely paperless government, which is efficient, which is transparent. That's what Pakistan for me should look like in the next 5 years. And when you talk about AI today, it is almost substitutable to digital, because all of this will have an artificial intelligence layer, whether it's in the form of bots talking to you, supporting you, helping you, automatic translators, synthesizing your work for you. I think it's going to be touching every single aspect of our life in the next 5 years,
Right.
Maybe sooner.
Right. And of course, like even in terms of developing a user front, maybe you need AI. But Minister, do you realize how absolutely amazing this news is? This might actually be my favorite bit, because every time you have to apply somewhere
Yep.
for a job, for, I mean, a higher degree,
Verification,
Oh my
attestation,
God.
notary public stamps,
You know-
17th grade officer, long queue. Trust me, I know.
God. Oh my God. And the amount of times I went looking for my documents because I don't know where I placed them. So that part I'm really looking
Absolutely.
forward to. Thank you
Inshallah.
so much, Ms.
Thank
Shazza
you.
Fatma Khwaja. You've been a great sport, and also, honestly, a great guest. I
Thank
have
you.
to say thank you so much for being
Thank you.
here.
Thank you for
I will
having
see
me.
you actually at the NDSAI week, because I
Inshallah.
want my viewers to see what was happening over there. I'll try to film maximum bits for you also. And for any of you who might still have any questions about this, leave them in the comment section below. Let us know what your suggestions for Pakistan in the AI world are, and I will share them with the minister. I'll see you next week. Take care.